welcome to the StarCommand Podcast. I'm David Seymour with my good friend and co-host, Alan Bragg. We have a big show for you today. We'll talk the last 2 weeks of opening college and where we had our first upset of the season, and we'll get you ready for your fantasy football season. But before we dive in, my buddy here had a great couple of weeks out on the high seas, ended up getting engaged. So congratulations in order for Alan and his fiancee Maria. Maria. But so I know you were out on the cruise liner having a blast, but I know you were able to keep up with what was going on. So what are some of your biggest takeaways, Alan, from week 0 and week 1 of the college football season?
Yeah, well, appreciate the blessing on the engagement. The cruise was amazing. Met a lot of great college football fans. I tell you what, when that Saturday kicked off, you started seeing people navigate to the TVs, right? It was some good stuff. So one of my biggest takeaways is that Miami's going to win the ACC. They're the real deal. I mean, they walked into the swamp and just thumped Florida. Cam Ward looked amazing. He is a dual threat quarterback. I think that most people, any team would take. I got some stats for him. So I had to look him up. I was like, who is this Cam Ward, right? So he started his career in 2020 at Incarnate Word, which is a Division I football subdivision. He won the Jerry Rice Award as the most outstanding freshman for them. Then there was COVID. He ends up transferring to Washington State, where he played last year, put up some good numbers. He completed 64.4% of his passes for 3,231 yards, 23 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. So decent, right? Out there in the Pac-12. And then, hits the transfer portal, goes to Miami. I think they've got a diamond right there. He's gonna be a stud. Them winning the ACC obviously depends on you. You called it, boy. Florida State. Second note, boy, did you call Florida State? That black cloud, whatever it is, that hangover that they have from last year is real. DJ Ugalele, did I say that right?
Probably close enough. I mean, we're not going to be saying his name for much longer, so I don't know that you get it
absolutely. Right. He's just not performing. They've got an issue there. He just missing open receivers, not leading the offense, and they're struggling. So another reason Miami's, I think, is just going to run away with this conference. Clemson will be there, but I think when those two match up offensively, Miami can handle them. So let's see. We got a little small taste last weekend with some big games, right? We can kind of see what the heart of conference play is going to be like with these big matchups. Notre Dame and A&M, great game. What a great game.
Notre Dame punched their ticket to the college football playoffs last week with that win.
You would think, right? That schedule that they have, they put everybody on notice. We're the real deal. We can go into Kyle Field, take a victory from an SEC opponent, and they handled their business. And then the other game was the LSU USC, another great game. I mean, I feel like every time I was looking at the game, there was a receiver or a running back or somebody running wide open, making plays, but they weren't putting up points. That was one of those games that looked like by the highlights, it should be 45-42, and it wasn't. It was a lot of bend, not break defense. But each team played well, and it was a great game. So that excited me, those two games, because now I can imagine in the middle of the SEC season, Big Ten, there's going to be some heavyweight teams going at it, and there's going to be some really good football played. So that's some takeaways that I had from the first weekend. How about you?
So my biggest takeaway was the whole Miami thing. I'd heard about Cam Ward last year when he was with Washington State. He was kind of one of those outliers for the Heisman Trophy, and but he was at Washington State. I didn't get to see a lot of him, a few highlights here and there. the biggest thing that I noticed about Cam Ward was they were up big at halftime. He had just come off of a touchdown drive, and he's so tuned into his tablet because the college football has finally come around to the whatever century we're in, but they've finally caught up to technology, and they've got the in-helmet communications and the tablets on the sidelines now. And he was so intensely looking at his tablet, studying what the defense was doing and what they did right and what they did wrong on their last offensive possession, that his teammate had to come over and let him know that it was halftime. Like half the team was already headed to the locker room, and he was so in tune to what was going on that tablet that somebody had to come and let him know it was halftime. Hey, get off the bench, come to the locker room. And it really impressed me that you just scored a touchdown. Like, it wasn't like you just had a bad play or an interception. You just had a lot of success on the field, and you're still so intent on studying. I think Miami's going to be the real deal. I definitely think that they're going to end up in the playoff and win the ACC. Florida looked horrible. They couldn't play defense at all. The offense was stagnant at best. They should win this Saturday against Samford. But Billy Napier's job is I think he's out of there. That's the first time in 34 years that they've lost a home opener. So now obviously they don't play every season for the last 34 years at home, but that is the first time in 34 years that they've lost a home opener. And I just don't know that he's going to be there long.
I agree. They had to start the season. They had 7 opponents in the top 15.
Right.
They're now 0-1. And am I right about that? Was Miami ranked top 15?
No, they were top 20.
Top 20. Okay, 7 top 20. So they're 0-1 on that gauntlet, right? And right. I don't see it getting better. I mean, they're yeah.
And then Florida State, DJ Ugalele was highly recruited, came into Clemson, is where he started his college career, and looking to take over for Trevor Lawrence, and supposed to be better than Trevor. And his career's never really taken off. And against Boston College, even, forget Georgia Tech. You can almost kind of put that aside. It's week 0. You're over in Dublin, Ireland. It's, there's a lot of factors that you could put towards poor play, but then to come back to the state side and play even worse against Boston College. He's just erratic. He's not consistent. And I really think that Florida State's in a lot of trouble themselves. They've got quite the gauntlet, and they look like the crybabies everybody was talking about them being after, the whole reason they got left out of the college football playoff is because nobody thought that they could compete without Jordan Travis. And here we are, not competing without Jordan Travis. So I think they're in a lot of trouble. Clemson, I think, will be all right, and they'll compete in the ACC. But Dabo's refusal to use the transfer portal, you can see his team looks so far behind Georgia, and he used to compete with the Georgias. The Georgias and the Alabamas, Dabo Swinney was right up there, and his refusal to get into the transfer portal.
The fact that he has 0, it just blows my mind. That's being stubborn to beyond
right
to a point that it's damaging. 0.
Yeah, and I've heard a couple of guys on different talk shows and stuff say that it would be like an NFL team saying we're not ever going to sign any free agents. We're only going to draft players, and if our draft picks don't work out, then that's what it is. But yeah, he's been stubborn to a fault, and could end up costing him his job.
The other teams with 0 were Army, Navy, and there was one other.
Right.
The military.
Yeah, Air Force. It was
Air
only
Force.
the service.
Okay.
Yeah, only the service academies.
Come on now.
Right.
And we know why there's a 0.
And then if we're going to we'll transition to a team that uses the transfer portal probably too much in Colorado. I picked them to possibly make it to the college football playoff. I thought that they'd hit the transfer portal to try to beef up their offensive and defensive lines, and that they were going to be better this year, and they're not. They played a North Dakota State team that, while they have a strong history of coming in and upsetting FCS schools and or FBS schools, Colorado needed to make a statement in week one that they were more physical, they were more dominant, and they were ready to play with the big boys, and they just didn't. Shedeur Sanders looked great. I think he threw for 455 yards or 445 yards, 4 touchdowns, and then one fluky, weird interception that bounced off of a guy's calf. And Travis Hunter was amazing, right? 7 receptions for 3 touchdowns, and then he had 3 tackles on defense. My personal opinion is no matter how good Colorado is or isn't, Travis Hunter should win the Heisman Trophy. Whether that holds up or not, I don't know. But I do know that he's an amazing talent. But those 2 kids alone can't carry this program. Shedeur was still never had a really clean pocket to pass out of, and we're playing a North Dakota State team, right? These are lesser athletes. This week they're going to be playing Nebraska, who had a redshirt freshman, true freshman Dylan Raiola, who looks like Patrick Mahomes' twin. Like when you look at him, they're going to be playing a tough Nebraska team this week, and they're not physical enough. They do not play good in the trenches at all, and it's going to be a problem. They may not win 3 games this year playing in the Big 12 with the way that they're playing. I had them in the playoff, and after watching week 1, I'm out on Colorado.
I know. I told you on that pick, I said they're scary because you know the guys you mentioned that you can count on.
Right.
You can count on those studs. It's everybody else that's in that fishbowl that's putting up with that attention, and can all the other kids handle it? And
right.
and maybe it's not even to that yet. It's not, the talent's not there. It might not even be the pressure at this point.
Right.
It's the talent, and you put the talent's going to be there. That pressure is just going to keep building, and if there's no talent, then it could be in for a really rough year. I hope the best for them. I like it when they're winning. It's fun having them. I like watching Colorado games. I really root for them. But boy, if they go lay a dud in Nebraska today.
Yeah, and I root for Deion. I like everything about Deion, but at this point he just doesn't look like he's able to put it together. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that was, week 1 jitters, or I don't know, but I know he's got to have them boys ready to play today, because that Dylan Raiola kid is the truth.
He's got to coach him up. All the coaches have to get him ready. It's a lot of turnover, like a lot of schools. So it's going to be, we'll get to see what Deion and his staff can do, because we know he can coach. It's Jackson State. He turned that program around, made them relevant. Yep. The man can coach. He knows football. He's got a good staff. But again, you have to have talent, and we didn't see it week 1. But I wish him the best today. I want to see him. I want to see that game go down to the wire in Nebraska.
Me too.
I hope that they do.
Yeah, and it was a good game last year. So let's hope for the same this year. So talking about games today, I think your Arkansas Razorbacks got a big one at Oklahoma State. And yes, Texas has got a big one. We're going to the Big House up in Michigan. So we've got some really good college football games being played today.
Yeah, that's 2 tiers of big games right there. You got big game for 2 fan bases, and then you got big game nationally.
You're right. Well, and that transfer quarterback that Arkansas has looked really good in week 1. That offense was really humming right out of the gate.
10 for 10.
Interesting to see what they can do.
10 offensive possessions, 10 touchdowns. That's how you start the season. Now, we were playing a UAPB, University of Arkansas Pine Bluff. Nowhere in comparison, talent-wise. We should have rolled them. But the thing that we did well was no procedural penalties. Didn't turn the ball over. We did the little things went well, and our Bobby Petrino's back, offense was clicking. So, as Hog fans, we're super excited. We usually are. at this time of year. It's usually week 4, week 5, week 6 that we, come back to reality. But it's great to have a big game on the schedule and everybody in the state be excited again. Because we always start excited. And now we have, we got some new guys in the offense, and Petrino's back, so we really think we could do something. Big test today. That's the two. It's funny. We're right on the same page. The 3 look aheads was, Texas, Michigan, just gives us that Texas Michigan game gives us some great visibility on where, Texas, are they exactly what they think they are? Can they go to the big house on this Saturday? Right. And can they get that victory? And then where's Michigan at? What new coach, turnover, players, where are they? We're going to know. If they hang with Texas and compete and it's a great game, okay, they're going to compete all year. Texas goes in there and rolls them. I don't think anybody, unless you represent the M, are thinking Michigan's going to roll them. I think it's going to be a tight game, field goal at the end, or Texas rolls.
Right, and that kind of tells us where we're at in the state of Michigan football, right? New coach, new quarterback, essentially a new roster. They lost a lot of guys to the NFL last year. And I found this out this week is that Sharon Moore is actually coaching without a contract currently. They're still waiting on all the cheating scandal suspensions and everything to come about from the NCAA, I guess, before they give him his contract. So he's been coaching without a contract this whole time. But where I'm really interested in seeing this, I think that, any talk that I've heard and really my thinking is where can Michigan hang with them? It's not can Michigan beat them. I don't think anybody really gives Michigan a shot to win this game, but I kind of do, because the real question for Texas right now is, does Steve Sarkisian have his guys ready for this big game? Right, a couple of years in a row, we've scheduled these big games in week 2. The last 2 years, it was Alabama. We ended up with the win last year in Alabama, but 2 years
should have won 2 years ago. You should have won 2 years ago.
When they were in Austin, we should have won, and we somewhere in it, they just weren't able to put Alabama away when we had them on the ropes. And that's kind of been the Texas way the last few years. Even last year, after beating Alabama, right, we had the big game against Oklahoma where we're cruising to a Big 12 championship, cruising to a college football playoff berth, looking at an undefeated season. All we have to do is take care of Oklahoma at the Red River Showdown, and we can't, right? Oklahoma comes in and steamrolls us. Luckily, they end up losing 2 more games throughout the season so that we're still able to play in the Big 12 championship game, and we're still able to enter into the college football playoff for the first time. But it's those big games that always trip us up, or even the small games after the big games. So what I'm looking for is, if we do go in and roll Michigan like we really should, like we should have no problem with Michigan at all. What do we look like next week, right? What do we look like in a couple of weeks when the thing's really humming and we come up against a Vanderbilt or somebody? I don't even think we play Vanderbilt, but in that essence, right, we come up against a team that by all accounts we should roll and have no problems with. How
about going to Fayetteville, Arkansas?
Yeah, we should roll Arkansas, but that's one of those games that Texas would
we'll be ready. We will be. That will be our year. Texas is going to come to Fayetteville. We will be ready. We will treat that as our national championship. Texas will not feel the same way. To your point, can Sarkisian make your players realize, hey, they're going to be ready?
Yeah.
This would make their year. This would make our year to horns down, send you guys home, ruin your year.
Most definitely.
Make our year. And that's going to be a lot of other teams same way.
Most definitely. And that's what comes with success, right? And that's Sarkisian's job here, right? Is I have to manage this success, right? Texas is back. It's been a long time since Texas has really been a good football team where they were in national championship conversations year in and year out. And here we are, right? Can we stop stubbing our toe? Can we manage our success and figure out how to play every game like it's week 1, And I almost feel like it's going to be harder this year for coaches, all coaches, not just Sark, but all coaches to do this, because now it's a 12-team playoff, right? Now I don't have to go undefeated and win my conference just to even have an opportunity to play in the college football playoff, right? Now we can maybe lose 2 games, but as long as they're close games against better opponents, maybe we still get a shot to squeeze in that 12th spot, And so how does Sark get his players to manage their success, and come into every game like it's the national championship game? So cool. So who do you got this weekend?
All right. So this weekend, first, let me talk about my picks on the first week. Let me tell you how I did. So my 3 picks were my 2 wins where I had Oklahoma minus 9.5. They won by 24 over South Dakota State. I had Notre Dame plus 2.5 over A&M. They won by 10. My 2 victories. My 1 loss, and again, I said it on there, I said this one, just a big game. I wanted to pick a big game, was LSU. And when I originally had it, was minus 6.5. And didn't that spread go down to like 4?
Yes, it did.
Yeah. So I got them at minus 6.5, even worse. And obviously they lost the game. So I took my first L of the year on that one. And what again, the other 2 was a parlay. I felt strong about the other 2, but I wanted to pick a big game.
Right.
And I did, and I lost. So dipped my toe in the big boy water and didn't do too well. This week, where are my picks at this week? All right. Okay, I got Iowa minus 3. They're playing at home against Iowa State. I have Ohio plus, they're at home. They're plus 2.5 against the University of South Alabama. I got Kansas minus 5 on the road at Illinois. Boise State plus 21 at Oregon.
I like that pick because Oregon struggled with Idaho State last week. So yes, I like that pick.
And Boise State looked good. I think when we did our 13, when we did our college football predictions, if you remember, I gave you 13.
Yeah.
I gave one of those is eliminated. SMU lost last night. I had SMU and Boise State were my at-larges. SMU said, I'm going to go ahead and bow out now and get out of this. So Boise State is now the 12th. And so I'm hoping that they're legit. They look good week 1. So there's my and I have 1 over I picked. Ole Miss is at home. They scored 76 points last week. They're playing Middle Tennessee Tech, and they scored 32 points last week. So some offenses that are feeling good, scored some points. Both of them won. They scored points last week, and I just have a feeling that Dart with Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin, they're just going to keep rolling everybody they can. They're no mercy. I see them easily getting 50 again.
Yeah.
And then Middle Tennessee maybe puts 2 touchdowns on the board and they cover the 62.5.
Okay. I like that.
Over 62.5. Now since I brought up that over, I thought when I was looking at the games last week, I thought, man, it feels like there's a lot of high scoring. I mean, I was seeing 70s and 60s and 50s, and I thought, well, is it just, did I miss it previous years, or was there a lot more high scoring? So I looked into this first week last year of points and who was putting up points in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Right. So last year, there was one 80-point game in week 1. Oregon put up 80. Damn. There was 2 70-point games by Oklahoma and Ole Miss. There was 3 60-point games, and there was 11 50-point games. So a total of 3, 6, 17 games with 50 or above. This year, we had 4 70-point offenses out there. And this is the team scoring 70, right?
Right.
One team. So we had 4. That was Ole Miss, Auburn, Arkansas, Washington State went and put 70 points or above. We had 6 teams score 60. That's Tennessee, Central Michigan, Alabama, Louisville, Tulsa, Arizona. And then we had 14 teams score 50 points compared to 11 last year. So that's a total of 24. So 7 more games. There was more, right? There's 7 more offenses went out there and got 50 points or more. So I found that interesting because I was like, man, I don't remember that many teams putting up that many points. And there's 24 teams with 50 or above, last year 17. So maybe we're in for a better offensive year. Maybe there was just more mismatches. I don't know. Time will tell. But I did find that interesting.
That is very interesting.
I
So,
like I like it when the other team's scoring two.
right,
Nobody likes 70 to nothing, but unless you're a Hawk fan.
right. What is that? Woo pig?
Woo pig suey.
Yeah.
Let's baby.
So on my college picks for this week, I'm right there with you on the Iowa -3 versus Iowa State. Their offense actually looked really good last week. I think they put up 40 points, which might have matched their entire season total last year.
What was
So
that pick?
I'm sorry.
What was the pick?
The Iowa -3 over Iowa State. I
Oh,
took that with you.
shoot.
I did take Texas -7 over Michigan. I've struggled with whether I should take that just on the money line or go ahead and take the points. And there's a bit of a quarterback controversy in Michigan at the moment, and I just don't know what kind of coach Sharon Moore is yet. Is he the I'm going to gamble and take a chance at the big tricky play that I need to hang with Texas, or am I going to play conservative? Because if he plays conservative, Texas is going to roll him. And I really do think it'll be a close game through the first half, but somewhere mid third quarter or so, I think Texas takes off. I went ahead and took Oklahoma State -10 against Arkansas. Um, Oklahoma State's looked good the last couple of years. They've got a great running game. So if they can keep hold of the ball and score on Arkansas's defense and then keep Arkansas's new offense off the field, I think they have a good shot to cover those 10 points.
I get it. It's exactly that, the run game. If that's going to decide the game. If we can stop the run, keep them from just having 13 16 play drives on us, and I don't know that we can do that. I don't know yet. But yeah, that run game scares me.
Then the other game, two games I picked, I took Utah -14.5 at Baylor. Utah looks great, and Baylor's one of those teams that only comes around once every 10 years or so.
I like that.
And then I got Maryland -8 at Michigan State. Michigan State's just been bad at football for a couple of years now, and Maryland's really minus the real big dogs of the Big Ten. They've really been able to hold their own and blow a lot of people out. So I think that's a pretty safe pick. So
nice. I will go put my bet in now.
And so now that we've gotten college out of the way, we can transition into the NFL. We've had two games already. We've got the rest of opening weekend starts tomorrow and obviously ends on Monday night. So really for me, man, Kansas City looked like a team on a mission in that first game. Nothing seemed to phase them. They've got a brand new toy. That Xavier Worthy kid is fast as I don't know what. Like he might be even faster than Tyreek Hill. I know he ran the fastest 40 time ever in the history of the combine, but I mean just true game speed. Like I don't count 40 times. True game speed, I think he might be faster than Tyreek Hill, and that's going to be dangerous. Kansas City's offense looked like they were humming, and they didn't even have Hollywood Brown out there yet because he's still injured with the collarbone issue. Their defense looked not quite as good, losing L'Jarius Sneed, but they were still the dominant force that they have been for the last couple of years. And Kansas City did not look like a team that just won a Super Bowl. They look like a team that hasn't won one and is hungry for their first. And that's a scary situation for the rest of the NFL.
Absolutely. They were defensively, they got tired at the end.
Right.
And you could tell the fatigue with the pass rush. And Lamar was able to do a little bit more, but they did. They were Kansas City. I had mentioned that was one of my picks of the three NFL games I picked was the Ravens because I thought, they've had all summer and training camp to think about that playoff loss last year. And I figured they would come in super hungry, similar to what Detroit was able to come in and do in Kansas City week 1 last year. Kansas City's champions. Here they are. Here's our banner. Let's celebrate. How hungry are you week 1?
Right.
And then here's this team, not only are they, do they want to dethrone the Chiefs, but they have that bitter taste because that's who, knocked them out of the playoffs. And I just saw that game going differently. I thought that Ravens would smash them in the mouth, would be efficient, and they were not. I mean, that downfield passing game was almost non-existent. There was, an early route to Zay Flowers over the middle, and I thought, there you go, that's good. And you didn't see it again until like third quarter. You started hitting Isaiah Likely a little bit, yeah, it wasn't surprised when the game was over. I wasn't surprised. Because it's Patrick Mahomes doing what he and the Chiefs do all the time. I would have loved to see that toe be in bounds though, and them go for 2, because you could hear the announcer saying that were leaving the offense on the field and they were going to go for 2.
Right. Yeah. And I saw John Harbaugh flashing the 2 fingers. It really surprised me too with Baltimore is that Derrick Henry only had 13 rushes. 13 rushes for 46 yards. They went out and spent all of this money to bring him in. He was supposed to be the secret sauce to beat Kansas City, and then you didn't even use it, right? He's not a running back that you can give the ball 13 times and expect big things. He's the guy that's going to go out and get 2 yards in a cloud of dust, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, and then as he wears the defense down late in the game, he's going to start breaking them. And so to not feed him and not use him, he kind of like, I've seen a couple of shots of him over on the sideline, and I was like, he looks like he's questioning why he even signed here. Like he just looked completely lost as to why he wasn't in the game. But in Kansas City will do that. They'll make you play their game, but Baltimore has got to stop getting into this habit of trying to play Kansas City's game and figure out how to play their own game.
Yeah, I think the Ravens and their staff, they let kind of circumstance dictate Derrick Henry, right? He wasn't in on third downs. And then when they got behind, he was not in at all, because it was if they were running the ball, it was going to be Lamar running the ball. And so they just kind of let those circumstances dictate his play. And if they ever get behind, I don't see them leaning on Derrick Henry.
No.
And every week's going to be different, but I don't really see him getting 20 carries, maybe 4 or 5 games. And that's probably too many.
Yeah.
Him reaching the 20 carry mark 3 times, maybe.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think I agree with you on that, especially with Todd Monken as the offensive coordinator. And so, talking about one big time free agent signing running back, we can transition into Friday night's game with another one. I know you were stuck at a rain delayed high school game, so you didn't get to catch much of the actual game, but Saquon Barkley is a cheat code. Jalen Hurts throws 2 interceptions and fumbles the ball. So the Eagles have a total of 3 turnovers for the game, and they still managed to win by 6 points. And it was all because of Saquon Barkley. He wasn't the only one that scored, but he had 109 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns, one of them receiving and 2 rushing. And he looked like a man among boys for the whole game. The team that I'm playing against in fantasy football happens to have Saquon Barkley on their team, and that was just decimating for me to watch him have that much success.
Get Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley going against you for sure.
Yeah.
Because if Jalen doesn't have all those turnovers, his point production's way up there.
Right.
But that's tough, dude. Saquon's a stud. I have valued him in fantasy for every year. It's hurt me, the year he got hurt, but it didn't. Unfortunately, this year with my draft position, I drafted from 3 leagues. I drafted from 2, 3, and 7. Wasn't going to take him at 2 or 3. Got to get one of the stud receivers. And at 7, I was planning on taking him, but for some reason in my league, CeeDee Lamb got passed up all the way to 7, and I said yes, I'll take CeeDee Lamb at 7. And then he's not available when it comes back to me and in any of the drafts. But man, I love Saquon. I really like having him on my team and been able to get him in previous years and wasn't this year. So seeing that yesterday hurt because
Yeah.
I've always valued him and I know he's going to be such a great situation with Philly. They've got so many weapons.
Hmm.
Um, they're gonna have a good year. They're just what happened last year. I was kind of hoping that would keep spiraling
Me too.
and they would keep struggling, but dude, they're just they did the push tush didn't work. So the clips that I did check on because I did bite the bullet and get Peacock last minute. I was out there in a rain delay, and I'm sitting in my truck, and I was mad about it, but I freaking subscribed to Peacock and I started watching it a little bit that I did. I saw some tush pushes not work. I saw a
Right.
fumble right at the end of the game. They fumbled
Yep.
and had to kick the field goal. So I like seeing that. As a Cowboys fan, as a Commanders fan, you
Yeah.
don't want to see a play that you can't stop. And speaking
Most
of cheating,
definitely.
gets very annoying with that crap. So I was happy to see that not work. But
Right.
Saquon showed out.
Yeah. And then, it didn't work the first time at all. The second time it worked, and then the third time they had the fumbled snap. There's going to be some adjustment there with Jason Kelsey not there. That's a stud that you're losing. Probably might possibly go down as the best center to ever play football. If you look at the things that he was able to do, the way he was able to swing out and go in motion and do all the different things that he was able to do at the center position. So that's a big thing to replace. The other fumble was the same thing, was a mishandled snap. The new center snapped it too early and hit Jalen Hurts right in the chest. And yeah, I think for a team to have 3 turnovers and still win by a touchdown, says a lot about what you might be able to expect from them for the rest of the season, because I don't think that's going to be an all year thing, right? Jalen Hurts is not a turnover machine. He's usually pretty smart with the ball. So once they get some of that stuff dialed in, and their defense, for the most part, really held up. I know they allowed 29 points, but at the end of the day, there were a bunch of times where Green Bay's starting field position was on the other side of the 50 because of a turnover, and they were able to hold them to field goals or keep them out of the end zone altogether or off the scoreboard altogether. So that defense looks like it's been revamped. They've got some kinks to work out with the new coordinator and some communication issues, but I think all in all, Philadelphia is going to be all right, which is, again, very, very sad to say that it looks like they're going to be okay. So,
I
um,
I saw that game being weird, and I had Jordan Love. He was my quarterback in fantasy that I was really eyeing that I wanted. Obviously got to see the last game that we played against him last year where he shined. His last 7 games he was a different quarterback.
yeah,
So I was really high on him, and I fortunately picked him in one league out of my 3. And the injury that happened last night. Hopefully he's okay. It looks like an ankle just from the replay, but
right.
not look good walking off the field.
And he was there for the last quarter and a half. So about halfway through the third quarter, it started. He was getting massaged on his calves and eating bananas on the sideline every time he came off the field. So I
Oh,
don't
really?
know. Yeah. And then the lower leg injury happened on the last play of the game. Speaking of fantasy quarterbacks, I really wanted Lamar Jackson, and you took him literally the pick before, like,
Oh, you were going to take him in round 3 as well?
yes. And you took him exactly right before I was going to take him. I was like, this guy
That's
right
why you
here.
do. And it's funny because I almost didn't thinking, well, nobody's going to take him in 2-1, 1-2. So it would have been 4 picks. And I was like,
Right.
nobody will. Like I could take another player, elite player, and get him on the way back. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to take that chance. I want him. That's my guy. I want to get him. And so I'm glad I did now. Man, that would have hurt
Yeah.
so bad.
So, yeah, speaking about draft position, I figured out because this is the first fantasy league I've been in a couple of years due to circumstances. But, any other time that I've been in a fantasy league, I've always kind of been drafting in the middle of the pack. And I have figured out after this last draft that I'd much rather have that than picking near the top of the draft because it's so long. Because there were a couple of different times, even after, Lamar Jackson was taken, I was like, okay, Joe Burrow's the guy that I want. Before it could get back to me again, Joe Burrow was gone. And
oh yeah, you have to so once you get to pick 2, 3, and then 4, 5, you have to be what's the word I'm looking for? A tactician,
yeah,
and really lay out your lineup, because you're picking back to back, and the rosters are gonna be depleted by the time it gets back to you. Anybody
right.
you're eyeing in those first rounds are not going to be there. So you really have to say, do I want to go strong receiver, running back, quarterback? Like, you really have to be a tactician with those back-to-back picks, realizing like, okay, I got to sure up couple spots on my team, and then wait, 20
Yeah.
minutes.
Right. Well, and then I had the glitch with my internet connection at the house for whatever reason and got
Sam
stuck.
Laporta.
Yeah. Well, I was cool with Sam Laporta. I wanted him, but I had Debo Samuel on my watch list, not as somebody that I wanted to take right away, but I wanted to keep an eye on him because I think he has some fantasy value for a bench player or whatever. But then I end up with him as a starting wide receiver. So we'll have to.
You'll be all right with him in your flex. If you got him,
Yeah.
if you're playing him as your flex, I like Debo. I've got him in another league. I'm high on Debo this year. I did in one of my leagues, I set Jordan Love. I didn't play him last night. I put Tua in.
Oh,
Reason being is I just saw that as a weird game, right?
yeah.
It's a Friday night game in a foreign country. Not a good opponent. It's just a weird people, athletes are creatures of habits, these
Right.
players.
And you
And
have
I
no
just
habits.
right, and everything's out right? And so I just thought that could be a weird game. And then you hear the alternative was having Tua in Miami for a 1 o'clock kickoff and an offense he knows. And so
Right.
I said, let's week one, let's go with that. Even though I think Jordan Love's gonna be the better player if God, hopefully he's healthy.
Most definitely.
But what was going on with the turf? There was also a lot of mention about players are
So it was real slippery. I guess for whatever reason, apparently soccer turf is a lot softer and smoother or slipperier than what
well, that makes sense. They're
turf
out there
usually
sliding and
is.
scooting.
Yeah. So apparently they had just played a soccer game the Sunday before. So it hadn't even been a full 7 days since they had played a soccer game and had to transform it from soccer to football. So it just wasn't good turf. Nobody was able to keep a good footing. Yeah, it was sloppy as far as that goes. Players were constantly changing out cleats, trying to get the right cleat length in there, and yeah, it was not good. And truthfully, there was a pass that Jordan Love went to make and almost got picked off because he slipped and he was just throwing it because he got real panicked. And then it was right after that he started getting all his calves and everything worked on. So I don't know if the turf had something to do with it. Maybe he strained something, but so obviously Saquon Barkley's been the big hit for fantasy so far this week. And he may end up being the biggest hit of the weekend. Who do you like this weekend in for a fantasy team? Who do you think would be somebody to really keep an eye on?
Let me look at my teams. Give me a second.
All right.
I
I'll
did.
I'll start I'll start while you look at that because
I will say I did like my Lamar Jackson Xavier Worthy combo
yes.
in our sexy best beast league.
Yeah, that worked out nice for you. I think somebody to watch out for is Keon Coleman. Rookie wide receiver playing up in Buffalo. He's been the talk of the town for his antics so far, for the way that he talks, and he's so genuine, and he's really been a funny kid. But the Bills trade away Stephon Diggs, tired of the attitude or whatever the case may be. And Keon Coleman is the guy that they draft essentially to replace Stephon Diggs and be the number one wide receiver. I think the tight ends are really at the beginning of the season. They're going to do a lot of two tight end sets, and those are going to be your big guys. But I think keeping an eye on Keon Coleman. If he can hit the ground running in this Buffalo offense, he's going to give Josh Allen something that he's not really ever had, which is a true tall, big-bodied, fast wide receiver. Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs that were there before, they were shorter, smaller, speedier. But this is the real guy that you can really just throw the jump ball to and hope he can go up and get it, and may really change the dynamic of this offense. And so I think Keon Coleman, if he can hit the ground running, he's looked good in preseason. He's looked good at training camp.
Agree. I'm high on him as well. I was high on him in all the drafts. I was only able to secure him on one team.
I got him in as my flex right now. So
yeah, you took him as a starter. I like that.
Yeah.
You reached a little bit, but I see the potential, and I think that's a great pick. Yeah, he's I'm looking for big things out of him for sure. Xavier Worthy, obviously, I got him in two leagues.
Right.
Was hoping with him because again, it's Patrick Mahomes. Is a speed guy on the field. He's gonna find him.
Right.
I got him, I believe, in round 13 in our league.
Yeah.
I picked him and Cortland Sutton like 13 and 14 rounds, and I thought, how did I just pull this off? And then I quickly I did a little strategy because we have to draft our starters in that league, right? You have to fill out your lineup
right
before you start taking reserves. So I took at my flex, I took Tony Pollard because I was going to, I'm going to fill in a good running back here, and then I'll load up on receivers later. And it worked out for me because those receivers stayed available. I was able to secure a good running back, in my opinion, that's going to be on my bench.
Right.
Able to put Xavier Worthy in the flex position. And then Cortland Sutton, again, his number one receiver for Denver. If they ever start clicking, these number one receivers are going to get 1,000 yards. So Nico Collins is my guy that I kind of went with in most of my second round pick, and that's a big pick, right? Who you picking in the second round?
Yeah.
It was Nico Collins. I think he's going to be a hope. With all those weapons in Houston, he got injured last year. Him and Stroud had a great thing going. When he got injured, Tank Dell really blew up. And so Tank Dell is going to take some balls. Stephon Diggs is going to take some balls. Mixon's a great, pass catcher out of the backfield. But I just think Nico he's going to make himself stand out as the number one receiver. At least I hope so, and have a huge year down in Houston.
Yeah, I think that's going to be CJ's biggest problem this year is figuring out how to spread the ball around and keep people happy. Because the one thing that we know for sure is if you don't get Stephon Diggs the ball enough, he's going to start chirping.
He is. But winning, as long as you win. If they are winning, that quiets a lot of noise, right?
It does. It does. And
just win, baby.
Right.
when you start losing a couple games, then everybody starts. I'm not so selfish now because if you're winning, you're selfish.
Right.
I'm not here for the team. I'm about me. But you start taking some losses, and you say, "Well, now I feel like I can help the team if you give me the ball. Give me the ball." So
reason we're losing is because I'm not getting the ball. Yeah. Yeah, and we've seen that from Stephon in the past. So that'll be an interesting dynamic to really keep an eye on. So we have some fantasy guys to look out for. We had some picks for the NFL last week. I know we each had a game that played. You picked 3 games, the Ravens and Kansas City. Obviously, you took the Ravens there +3 in Kansas City.
Started off with the L. My first NFL game. Got the L. Let's go.
Yes. And so you still have the Chargers -3 versus the Raiders, which I really like that pick.
And that spread stayed the same. It hasn't moved. It's still at -3.
And then you have Atlanta -2.5 versus Pittsburgh, which I'm loving that pick more and more.
And it's gone up to 3.5 now. So it's
and I think that's a lot of that has to do with Russell Wilson may not play. He's got calf soreness. There's a chance that he doesn't play. I guess he's actually been listed as questionable officially. So we're still not sure. Russell Wilson's been named the starter, but Justin Fields may actually start the game due to his injuries. And I had Detroit -3.5 versus the Rams, which I actually think that spread's actually gone up too. I think it's up to 4 or 4.5 now. but I still love that pick. I think Detroit's going to come out and make a statement that, yeah, we lost the NFC Championship game, but we are here to stay. And then I took the Green Bay +2 versus Philly. Obviously, that was a loss. And just so that I have an even number of games as you, I'm going to add one up here, and I'm going to take my Commanders +3.5 versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm going to be at that game.
What are they? Plus what?
+3.5.
+3.5. All right.
So, especially with the hook, I don't know if we go out and win that game. But I think we look a lot better than what we have looked. And I'm going to be there. So this will be the fourth Commanders game I've ever been to. I've never gotten to go to one in their home stadium, but I've been to one here in Jacksonville, been one in Dallas, and I've been to one in Detroit. And we are 2-1 with me in the stands. So,
right.
So I will be there, repping the StarCommand podcast. So hopefully I make it on TV. I'm going to have us a little sign up, get us a little free advertisement.
Let's go.
Yes, sir. But so I think really we've covered everything for this week. We're ready and ready to go, man. Week 2 of the college football season. We've got the official start of the NFL season is finally here.
Man, I'm ready to watch some football. I tell you what.
Me too. And the fantasy games have kicked off. So I'm a little nervous about how week 1's going to go. I do have Dak Prescott as my quarterback, and what I do know is that the last time that dude was in a contract year, he really showed out. We'll see how he does against this Cleveland defense.
Tough week this week. I'm not touching that game. Betting wise, it's tough. I don't know. But
me neither.
Over the course of the year, Dak's gonna be a winner for you.
Oh, most definitely. And I'm interested to see which Deshaun Watson we get. Do we get the old Deshaun Watson, or do we get the Deshaun Watson we've had for the last couple of years? $230 million guaranteed. At some point in time, he's going to have to show somebody something.
Yeah, so, I'm rooting for the latter for sure.
Yeah, I know you are. And truthfully, I am too. Just regardless of anything else, what he was accused of and the situations that he put himself in is just an absolutely disgusting situation. I honestly don't think the NFL should have let him back. So and that's just my own personal opinion. It is, everybody makes mistakes, but there comes a point that something's got to be done to kind of stop some of this stuff. And I think the NFL lost an opportunity to do that. But
you don't go through like 40 allegations and then get to be the highest paid player. That's not how it should work.
The only player in the NFL with a $200+ million guaranteed contract. So, it's not what's ever happened to me when I got in trouble. So, but cool. We will stay tuned into these games, take some notes, and we'll be back next week with you guys. We appreciate you joining. And again, if you could help us out and hit that like button and subscribe button, and share it with your friends, man. Let them know that we're here and doing this thing. And we'll talk to you later.
All right. Peace.
Peace.